Jennifer has skipped. Okay, no worries, no worries. So I got that phone call that said Jennifer had skipped school, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever because, like many of you, Jennifer was just a normal, average student. She wasn't the president of the National Honor Society. She wasn't, the leader of the cheerleading team. She was just that great, average, happy, good, fun-loving, hadn't been in any kind of trouble, just a solid A minus, B plus student. Well, as the day went on, Jennifer never answered her phone. And then we got a phone call that afternoon that said Life Flight, we lived on a farm just a little bit south of Foley. Life Flight had taken off from our pasture, my horse pasture, and that Jennifer had shot herself. And then the next phone call was from the hospital, from Sacred Heart, that said that she didn't make it. So back to Sullenberger, that's just where the it is. That was my it. You can only imagine the hell of being in Las Vegas and trying to get a flight home, and everything happening here, and we're there and trying to get the flights, and my brain obviously wasn't working, and there's a 2-hour time difference, so trying to figure out what time to get on the plane and all of those kind of things. We did finally make it home and went through all the battles that I'm sure many of you have gone through as far as burying your child. But the more we thought about it, and my husband and I talked about the fact, the first counselor that we went to said, well, the way to solve suicide is to work on gun control. That didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm thinking, I'm paying you to tell me that? That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But at the time, there was a book that had come out called Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. And there was a chapter in that book that talked about, in Colorado, there was a program called Peer Helpers. And it talked about students helping other students. So we had a wonderful group of friends that met a lot. We formed a foundation. We knew we could not bring Jennifer back. And I absolutely refused, to those of us that are that first cousin to mental health, we don't walk in those shoes. We understand it, but we don't understand it. And I refused to let that cancer eat me up because I knew that we couldn't bring Jennifer back. But what I worried about were those fellow students. I worried about our next door neighbor, the adults that she might have said something to. I worried about her teachers that had her in class the day before. I worried about her fellow students that I actually got a phone call from a mother about a month after Jennifer died that said, well, Jennifer said something to my daughter, but, we didn't want to bother you with it. I'm like, after a few, several 4-letter words, like, oh, you're so kind. Thank you for doing that. But we knew we couldn't bring Jennifer back, but I knew we wanted to do something to help those other students. Because the statistics said then, and they haven't changed to today, the number one entity that even us, but certainly the students, the number one person that you are going to talk to when you have a problem, and that problem might be a flat tire. That problem might be a B on a test. That problem might be that your parents are divorcing, but the number one person you're going to talk to is a fellow peer. So it doesn't matter whether you're 14 or 44. And then actually, the best of the best parents, we all think we're the best of the best parents, right? We're there, we're trying to help, we're good parents. the best of the best parents actually make number 5 on the cut. Now, sometimes that's just because that B on the test was at 10 o'clock and you don't see the parents until 5 or 6. So it's not necessarily that the parents are doing anything wrong. It's just that the number one person that that student or us, the number one person they're going to talk to is a fellow peer. Actually, for statistics purposes, the number 3 person they're going to talk to is going to be an adult leader. Now, that adult leader might be a janitor in the school. It might be a teacher. It might be a next door neighbor that just sees that child get off the school bus at 3:30 before mom comes home at 5:30 or 6. So there are a lot of other entities that that child touches. We're adults. The female brain develops at 25. Guys, y'all don't grow up until you're 30. I'm sorry. That's just what the statistics show. So when you think about these kids that are 3rd graders, 6th graders, 9th graders, going through what I tell everybody I've got a PhD in mental health, the School of Hard Knocks. But they're going to talk to their fellow peer. So back to the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. In Colorado, they had a program called Peer Helpers, and it actually trained the students how to be good friends, good listeners. So we had some wonderful teachers that actually got it an accredited elective. In the state of Alabama, that is actually a course that goes on your transcript, just like Spanish or choir would. It's an elective. So we've got that passed in the state of Alabama. That's been out there for 20 plus years. Jennifer died in 97, so it's been a long time, but it is an accredited elective. So our vision, our group of friends, was we knew we couldn't fix the world, but we would at least work on Baldwin County. So we started the Peer Helper program in Baldwin County. We started with the high school. We started with 2 schools. Jennifer had moved from Bayside over in Daphne to Foley High School. Now, we learned later some statistics, and I can't bring her back, but I am aware of some of the facts. Some of the statistics are when a student changes school. And Jennifer was happy. She just wanted to go to a bigger school. She wanted a school that had football games on Friday night and had a band and had the cheerleaders and all those kind of bigger activities. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Bayside at the time was a very small school. So I didn't think anything about that being a red flag. But now I know when students are not happy at that school, sometimes that can be a red flag. Sometimes it's just legitimate. They want to go to a different school. The other thing I learned statistically, and ironically, I was told this, Jennifer was what they call a summer child. A July birthday is a summer child. The highest statistics, you're nodding your head, the highest statistics of suicide are summer children. When you stop and think about it, and I mean, it never seemed to bother Jennifer, but when you stop and think about it, those summer children, they're either the oldest in the class and they've already got their driver's license and they're taller than everybody else, or they're the youngest in the class and everybody's picking on them because they don't get their driver's license until June and they graduate when they're 17, or they're not able to do things that everybody else is doing because they're shorter or smaller or weaker or whatever. So that's another interesting statistic that I learned that I did not know. I still don't believe any of that was Jennifer. I truly believe in my heart that Jennifer was just a kid that got backed into a corner on the stuff and didn't know how to get out of the corner. One of my teachers that was very young when I was at Foley High School, and then she was, I won't call her old when she was there with Jennifer, but she was older, and she commented, she said, I've had both of you. She said, you were always a conniver. You could get out of that corner. Said Jennifer couldn't get out of that corner. And so being the oldest, because we kept Jennifer back in 1st grade. And the teacher actually gave me that article to read. So, which gives you major flashbacks, you know, whatever, 10 years later when, she was in 10th grade. But she was the oldest. She had her driver's license. She could do things that everybody else couldn't do because she had those driver's license. But the peer helper program is actually, I didn't want Jennifer's reputation, her resume, her legacy to be about suicide. That was the last thing. I knew at the end of the day, we couldn't stop suicide. I can't stop it today. I couldn't stop it then. And quite frankly, I have a little different opinion on suicide. What gives me the right to try to make that person stay on this earth when they are miserable? Because they are miserable. It's if they die of cancer, it's like, oh, well, they had cancer, they were in so much pain. What the hell do you think mental health is? When they are going through the mental illness of that pain. So the peer helper program actually helps those students deal with, there again, Dr. Francis calls it, the stuff that they are going through. Because when they're a third grader and their parents are divorcing, everybody else can say, oh, my parents divorced when I was in 5th grade. It's different when it's you, right? If you have a car wreck, your wreck's totally different from your wreck. I'm in insurance. I can use that as an example. But they're all different. And you understand that different. You react different. So the peer helper program helps those students deal with their stuff. We try to let each school do different. Carl and I didn't even mention my husband. You did. Thank you very much. Carl Jones is my husband, and thank goodness he was married into this Jennifer Moore Foundation. He did know Jennifer. We all rode horses together, but he's been wonderful and is actually on the executive leadership team for the foundation. But the peer helpers actually, it's an accredited course. We start as young as the 2nd grade. In the beginning, we started with the high school, and very quickly, the teachers came to us and said, oh no, it's the 8th graders that are having trouble. And then I actually had a superintendent tell me in the 4th grade, they decide how many days until they can drop out of school in the 4th grade. So we actually start in the 2nd grade. We try to be very loose and provide everything for those peer helper coordinators that the school system doesn't provide. The Baldwin County Board of Education, the Catholic Diocese, the city schools, kids are kids. We don't care what school system they're in. We will help them with whatever they need that the school system does not provide. The school system has those teachers, and then we will help them with anything else that they need. And we start in the 2nd grade, go all the way to a senior. Sometimes it's a club. Normally, by the time they get to high school, it's actually that class that they go to. And, when you stop and think about it, Jennifer would have been 40. So she could easily have a 16-year-old. So we're now on that other generation. And it's just so gratifying for Jennifer's legacy to be about the peer helper program. In fact, we were with a teacher last night at Orange Beach, and she knew about the foundation, but she really didn't know all the details. And that's okay, because I didn't want it to be a suicide program. I wanted it to be a peer helper program to where there was a tragedy, and now we can help those other students. So those students help other students, and now the kids are coming back and saying, I am a teacher because, I'm a doctor because, I'm a police officer because, I learned how to help people. I learned how to communicate with people. I learned how, to talk to people about their problems, the things that they were going through. So it's a wonderful legacy. I certainly would give anything in the world to have Jennifer back. but I knew that couldn't happen. And so to have her legacy with the foundation is just, it's an honor. It's very much an honor that we have. We actually have 55 schools in Baldwin County that have the peer helper program. They are all different because there again, Orange Beach is totally different from Silver Hill and it's totally different from Bay Minette. So we try to stay out of the details and let them do what works best for them. They are aware that the new students, they need that buddy from day one because it's different trying to figure out where your locker is. And then you've got to go way down this hall and find your classroom. So most all the peer helper programs have a buddy system. They'll have a pizza day. They'll have, Alberta calls theirs the pineapple day. You know, pineapple recognizes friendship. And so that's what they're doing. And the teacher yesterday was talking about, they actually have some special needs students that are peer helpers because they needed that special thing to do. And they only go to the 6th grade, the one that was talking yesterday. And those special needs students are going to the 1st graders and are reading to them. And it makes those special needs students be special, be extra special to go and read to the 1st graders. And then some other students she was talking about, single parent households. And so they buddy them with sometimes they call them bigs. They buddy them with a big guy and they just go out in the backyard of the school and kick the soccer ball. They're just buddies because you just never know when that conversation is going to come out. Now, all of the peer helpers, including the 2nd grade to seniors, they sign a confidentiality. And the confidentiality says, if anybody is going to harm themselves or harm others, confidentiality is off. I'm taking it to the teacher and the teacher is taking it up the ladder. So that's what they do as far as the confidentiality of the peer helpers. But in my spare time one day, I'm going to do a where are they now and how did the peer helpers help them, 10 and 20 years ago, and what are they doing? But I'm really, really proud of it. Can I say it was easy? Hell no. But I go back and say, I knew I couldn't bring Jennifer back, and I refused to make that glass half empty. I was going to make it half full and do something positive with Jennifer's legacy. So I'm very, very proud of it. Thank you. Thank you. Good, good. I'm proud of it. I will tell you, we bring all the students together for a Jubilee. And the teacher, the Orange Beach teacher last night was talking about what a big deal it was because these kids from Silver Hill or Fairhope or Daphne get on a bus, even if they're in the 2nd grade, and they get to go. This year we had it in Orange Beach. We had it at the wharf at the theater. And so they're special and they are held to a higher standard. The teacher yesterday was saying she had 3 mean girls. Heard that term? She said, hey gang, hey girls, this is not what peer helpers do. And they've kind of got a 3 strikes, you're out. And it's like, this is not, you are held to a higher standard. And mean girls is not what we deal with. And she said, they took it serious enough to where they straightened up and they realized what their actions were doing. So we have a Jubilee once a year. The kids love it because they get to do something special that they are honored to do because of being a peer helper. We have a national conference where we bring other teachers in. Like I say, we have 55 schools in Baldwin County, but we have also helped 575 and growing other schools around the country, mostly in the Southeast, but the Indian population in New Mexico has reached out to us a lot as far as the tribes because their suicide rate is extremely high. So they have come to our national conference. We have it back and forth between the Grand Hotel and the Perdita Beach Resort. But this year we had over 350 people that were there coming to learn. And so that's the way we get to show off and highlight our Baldwin County teachers that are doing such a fabulous job, because it's very unusual for a private nonprofit foundation to partner with the public school system and the Catholic schools and the city schools and everybody else's school and work together for the benefit of the students, which is what we're doing. So we had over 350 that came to our national conference. There again, the Jennifer Moore Foundation pays for Baldwin County teachers to come. And then we charge for everybody else outside of Baldwin County. And our infinite wisdom of starting this, we were not thinking about fixing the world. We were just thinking about Baldwin County. So all of our money stays right here in Baldwin County. And if you will all circle your calendar, the first Thursday of August every year, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, is the rodeo that we have. Jennifer rode horses, Carl and I both rode horses and rodeoed. So that is we call our capital campaign. That is kind of our big advertising. We tried to choose the hottest day of the year. So we have the hottest 3 days. And because it's students, we don't sell beer and we don't have air conditioning, and it's miserable, but it's wonderful because we do it for the kids, and all the teachers help and the students, and it's wonderful. And if you don't know, the horse arena here in Foley, it's basically across the street from South Baldwin Regional Medical Center on 59. So I expect every one of you to be there, even if you have to go and buy one of these little plastic fans, because you do need one. It is hot, but we don't start till 8 o'clock. So at least it's dark by then. But do we have any questions? I feel like I've been kind of rambling. So Carl, you're a good coach for me. Tell me what I forgot. They do, because they are, and thanks for bringing me around on that. I thought about a while ago. They never say, they are taught to never say, oh, your father's horrible. You need to live with your mother. Don't you dare, you're divorcing. That's just terrible. Can't believe he did that. They are taught very adult things. In fact, I've given this discussion to many business organizations, and they'll go, oh, I wish every one of my employees do that. To ask those leading questions. Why do you feel that way? How does that make you feel? What do you think you could do to change that? Those leading questions instead of those black and white, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Very judgmental questions. So that's what I say. The people that are now 30 and 40 coming back and saying, I'm a much better police officer because I was taught those lessons at a very early age. I'm a better teacher. I'm a better doctor. I run a better plumbing business because I can actually communicate with my employees instead of demanding that they show up at 8 o'clock or at 7 o'clock for work. They are taught life skills. I think in society today, it is very acceptable for all of us just to give up. Oh, just get a divorce, be on husband number 7. That car's no good. I'll just let them come pick that up. Oh, a bounce check. I'll make it good later. It's only $20. There's no accountability for those students. And this teaches them those accountability. Those 3 mean girls, they got a great lesson as 6th graders, how not to be mean and the consequences of being mean. And thank goodness the peer helper program was important enough to them to where they learned a valuable lesson. And that's what it's helping. I don't know that I can say that we are changing a culture and a generation, but I'd like to think so, that we are making a dent in the students in Baldwin County, that they understand consequences, that they understand, there are other options that they can help with in their life and make their life better. Like I say, even, if they're a better boss of that plumbing company that they own, or that police officer, how to communicate. So I'm very proud of Jennifer's legacy. I'm proud of what all y'all are doing. Be glad to answer questions.
A huge influence. Former educator county, and we started here.
Wonderful.
And the biggest thing, it really changed the life. But I have to say, I think we had a teacher that group of kids was able to all the other kids understand and deal with it so much better than
Mhm.
any of us.
You're exactly right. And those students are there on campus, regardless of what chaos has happened, what tragedy has happened. They're already there. They're already in place. And it's kind of sort of once a peer helper, always a peer helper. If you were in it, and a lot of times we have problems keeping them long because their scheduling, gets crazy and they can't necessarily be a peer helper that second year, but they've learned those core values of what to do. And they're in place in the school. So when there is a catastrophe, they immediately go into action because those feelings, those instincts become embedded in them. Sorry. And I give credit to the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul because it was the one that highlighted the program in Colorado. So that's probably where your school heard about it and came up with some sort of program in North Alabama that they actually had one. Yes, ma'am.
You commented that you say they learn.
I think so. The question was if they're only in the program for a short while, do they learn enough for that instincts? I mean, um, I didn't learn anything in biology and trigonometry and all those kind of things, but I did learn something. And so, you're always going to have some that learn more than others, but they still understand the concept. They still understand those core values of how to help their fellow student. We have other peer helpers that love it so much they want to be in it for 3 years. The wonderful part for me, Carla and I sit in on several scholarship interviews, and I'm in Rotary Club, and we have students that come from the high school at Rotary Club. I can remember 20 years ago when they'd stand up and say, "Oh, I'm in National Honor Society and I'm a cheerleader." Now they stand up and say, "I'm in National Honor Society and I'm a peer helper," which just, it has come up the rank of being something that they are so very proud of. And we see it on their resumes when they're filling out job applications and scholarship applications, that they realize the importance and it is recognized in Baldwin County. So yes, I think any of those, even if they're in it for a short, whatever they have semesters these days or 1 year, then they are going to still understand those core values because it is an accredited elective. I mean, it has a whole series of those life lessons that they're learning. The question is how a second grader can actually do any good. But now the kids start in fourth grade. So a second grader's been there 3 years. And so the teacher yesterday was talking about the peer helpers actually greet the students at car line. And the teachers talk about the kids come in actually smiling. And she was saying, you'd be surprised how much third, fourth, and fifth graders still have tears, getting out of the car. They don't really want to go to school or whatever. And when they're greeted by a fellow student. So you'd be surprised how much just the second graders can do. Each school is different. Each school is different. Our longest, Julie Champion, has been our longest peer helper coordinator at Foley, and Foley sees the need for it. They actually have 2 classes. So usually each class has about 20 or 25 students. So they have about 40 or 45 Foley high school students that are helping with that. But they do a lot going to the middle school and buddying with them. It's kind of like that secret society. There was a time when I got a phone call, there was a lady at one of the city properties whose daughter was was a senior. She had scholarships. Everything was wonderful for her future. And the mother found a suicide note. Where did that go? Well, she talked to a friend of mine that worked at City Hall who called me. I called the peer helper coordinator and who said, oh my goodness, yes, I know Mary, and we'll get her partnered with a student. The concept is to never have anyone sitting alone in the cafeteria. Kind of, think that way. Right. But the other thing is, as far as being a peer helper, we want somebody from every table there. We don't want just the captain of the football team and the head cheerleader. We want somebody from every, just like, who would have thought of having handicapped children be peer helpers? But they are so much enjoying it. This teacher yesterday just had tears in her eyes talking about how wonderful that had been. So each school is different. Each school is different, and I apologize for talking so long. So,
my question is, the teachers teach these classes. Where do they get the materials, or are they already trained with a course? What is, I guess, their background to facilitate these classes with these children? And my second question is, how the children chosen to be in these classes?
Okay, good. The question is, how are the teachers trained? What do they teach? And how are the students selected? It has actually gotten so popular, and most of the schools, the children apply. Now, sometimes the teachers know the students and say, you would be really good, you're kind of shy, but I really think you would be good at it, and they will encourage them. But I've had parents and grandparents call me and say, I really need you to pull some strings. It's like, we don't do that. They'll go through, it's become very popular that they want to be involved in that. But the Jennifer Moore Foundation, we have continued those curriculums. So we have a high school, middle school, intermediate, and an elementary school curriculum that is overseen, evaluated by the Alabama Department of Education, because it is an accredited elective. And some of them, we go down as young as, like, I think 6th grade for actually some of the classes. Most of those under 9th grade are clubs. But we do have some of the schools, I think in Fairhope, where they actually have a class as young as like the 6th or 7th grade on those. So we help write the curriculum, and of course now it's all, nobody has textbooks anymore, and everybody has portals and all of this stuff. And the students, last night we had 2 police officers in the class, and they admitted, these students, if there's going to be a fight between Foley and Robertsdale, those students know about it, and they take that information to the principals and the leadership. And there have been tons of, we know, we have documented evidence of suicides that we've stopped, but we've also stopped, fights on the playground or at the football game, and all kind of, there again, Dr. Francis's stuff, which is what, I think so many times we think of mental health as the extreme, the suicide part. But I had a friend talk to me one time about the analysis of it, and he talked about the bricks in the wall. When you've got bricks making a wall, as long as it's, 2 feet or 3 feet, you can step over it, you knock it down, you can do something about it. But boy, when it gets here, and you have that with a spouse, with a next door neighbor, with your kids, you know, when it gets here, ain't a whole lot you can do about it. And so with the peer helpers, they stay on top of that with what's going on in the school, and the teachers know. And you'd be surprised how much these teachers know and actually care about the mental health of these. And you know, mental health is happiness of these students, and trying to help them have a very, very good, productive, happy life. Please. Yes.
If you, oh,
I'm not sure we got a question answered about how to choose it. There's only the planning classes.
Yes, and the question, my husband Carl said, didn't know if we answered the question. That's part of what the Jennifer Moore Foundation does. We teach these teachers, especially the new ones, because teachers change. I mean, they'll move from Magnolia Springs to Summerdale to Bay Minette. The teacher last night lives in Fairhope, and she teaches in Orange Beach. And so the Jennifer Moore Foundation teaches them in the very beginning, but then when we have the national conference, they have all these breakout sessions that they can go to and find out how somebody else is doing it, even if it's in North Alabama, that they've got a really good elementary school program. And our teachers will go to that class and learn more things and talk to each other. And then with the portal, you know, they can put out there, I'm having a problem with this. Do y'all have any suggestions? But because it is accredited, then we actually do the training of those.
my question, thank you for clarifying.
Mhm.
Are all the principals in Baldwin County, are they aware of this foundation of peer?
The question is, are all the principals in Baldwin County aware? They are all aware, but principals have a really tough job. They have math and science and all those requirements to make sure that they fill that bucket. And they only have so much money and so many students and so many teachers that they have to do. And then you also have other ones. I mean, we all have our favorite. And if we think math and science is the most important thing, then we might, as a principal, we might push that math and science program because we're brand new and we don't really, you know, we don't know a lot about the peer helper program. They know about it, but it's still a little different. It's like the Leader in Me. It's a great program. It's a whole nother program out there. And Baldwin County has adopted it, but every single school hasn't embraced it, I guess is the best word. Because I think there's like 77 schools in Baldwin County, and we've got 55 of them where we have really good active programs. But even in a classroom, you can have 10 students with A's. Somebody's gonna have a 99, somebody's gonna have a 90. So all of them are aware of it, yes, but whether they embrace it's a different story.
Next question. If you see a need in a school, that school does not participate in it, how can you facilitate them?
Well, and Carl, I left my business cards in the car. We'll need to go get some of those because it's got my cell on it and the foundation's name and email and those type things. So don't ever, y'all see my personality, I don't hold a whole lot back. So if you call me up and say XYZ school is where my child or my grandchild goes, and you know, we don't have it there and we really want it, I guarantee you some of our staff on the Jennifer Moore Foundation program will say, well, we had a really good program, but that teacher left, she retired, they're getting another one, but the principal has committed till next year, you know, let them get on their feet or something. They know about all 70 plus schools, but they will work with you and they will tell you what's going on. And then sometimes you just need to apply the pressure. Eddie Tyler with the Baldwin County Board of Education, he meets with our executive director periodically and says, okay, tell me the top 10 and tell me the bottom 10. You know, I want to know. And now that's only the public school system. We've got other school systems, but everyone in leadership, whether it be your mayors, whether it be, you know, the Catholic diocese, they're all interested in it. So just let us know.
Miss Francis,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you can see the chat, but Miranda left you a comment about where are they now? She was a peer helper at Robertsdale High School from 2011 to 2014, was
Oh,
part of the anti-bullying task force then, and is now 4 weeks from graduation from the University of Alabama with a master's in social work and has already accepted a position as a mental health therapist in Mobile.
that's what it's all about. That's changing the world. That's what's changing the world. Did y'all all hear that halfway? Miranda was part of, and add back in, she was a Robertsdale peer helper in 2010 or 11,
2011 to 2014.
2011 to 2014. And she is just now getting her master's degree in
Yes.
counseling and has been hired. So you just never know how. That is wonderful. Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm so proud of you. That's wonderful. You just, that's where are they now and how we touched them, even if it was 10 years ago when they were in high school. So that is fantastic. Very, very proud of you.
Okay. I say that, that was- because that is- I wonder when you- if somebody you will take
Mhm.
it's gonna happen.
It
But I
does.
did want to ask you, in the summer, and what
Well, and oh, yes, yes. The question was, when you are at the bottom of that mountain, because it is a mountain, what makes you have that choice to get up every day. And trust me, I can tell you more things I did wrong than the things I did right. I mean, Jennifer died on a Thursday and we had the funeral on Sunday, and I didn't even mention the fact that my son was 14 and he found his sister who had shot herself. And here his parents are off in Vegas. And so, I got him up Monday morning, put him on school bus and said, go act like nothing's wrong. And I stayed home for 3 months. And you have those sobering moments later and saying, what the hell was I thinking? He was a 14-year-old kid. What was I doing making him go to school? My husband went into immediate depression the minute Jennifer died, never got out of it. And I'll tell you, he committed suicide 3 years later. So having a PhD, I've been through it twice. But when I say it's a cancer, it just ate him up and he could not put one foot in front of the other. And so I saw both sides of it. And that's why I struggle by saying, who am I to say that he's not at peace today? I really struggle with that. And I know that gets into all kind of religious and emotional and all kind of issues. But he couldn't just, he talked about how bad his heart hurt, physically hurt. Well, my philosophy was somebody had to have it together. Somebody had to make sure the power bill was paid and, took care of our son Grayson that was 14 at the time. So I call it DNA. I don't know, the good Lord gives you what you can handle. Um, and in one of the speeches I give, I talk about the fact that I used to apologize for my bold, outspoken, personality. And then I decided that God chose me to have this bold, outspoken personality. He chose me to have this personality. And so I quit apologizing. I try to be nice about it, but I quit apologizing for it because he actually chose me to go through that. I tried for years to get my husband to understand, because he was more involved in the foundation initially because it gave him such reason to get up and go. And then I really think once we got it going, he didn't have that same passion for it once it really started going. I call it DNA. I didn't have the same DNA. I used to tell my mother, I'm walking in these shoes, you're not. I appreciate your advice and guidance, but I'm the one that tastes it, smells it, hears it, that's walking in these shoes. So, my husband just, that DNA was not there. He was living in his own hell that he couldn't get out of. And I will not blame him for that because it was his own living hell that I didn't understand. I didn't have that same DNA. And I won't, people at the funeral said, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's like, don't be. He's okay. He's okay now. Because I didn't understand. I didn't have that DNA. I didn't hear what he was hearing, smell what he was smelling. I didn't have all of that. The good Lord made us different. It's DNA. And it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other to get up every day. I remember when Jennifer had been gone 30 days and I thought, okay, 30 days, anybody, my employee handbook says you get 3 days. I've been home 30 days, get your act together, get your shower, go to work. Had more tears than the shower head had, and it was like, oh, this ain't gonna work. I can't do it. Yeah, my employee handbook says, so does everybody else's employee handbook. Immediate family member, 3 days. Come on back to work, act like you're okay. It does. It does. And the comment was, it comes back. I tell everybody this to try to make it lighthearted because, in Foley, Alabama, I'm kind of the, when suicide happens, I'm the one they often come talk to. So it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I've had people in my office go, oh my God, don't leave. It's like, I'll be right back. I'm going to get my purse out of the car, And now I lost my train of thought for my joke that I was going to tell, but in the midst of all of it, now I've forgotten, but it'll come back. Sorry, I didn't mean to say too long. Thank you.
But I commend someone.
Thank you.
Because my daughter's doing her third year in college. And I worked in the medical field for 30 years. I still all kinds of stuff. And I also so I had all. I mean, she had friends. And it, and she was on the bus. And she got and that I have for me is nothing better.
That's right.
But even today, this kid, and she pushed me to remember that. get the time and the energy. So when the pandemic hit, I'm like, okay, you know that, I mean, and it's just my thing that, you know, with the vaccinated shot, you know, I did get vaccinated. And that was my choice. And then in the medical field, the lungs and seeing the stuff, the doctors, and she's like, so when are you
Mm.
so I'm like, I'm gonna go to work and he said, well, Vanessa, you know, you gotta go get vaccinated. I said, well, I guess that's what my answer I've been praying for because I'm gonna hang my head up on that and take to the streets and heal. So that's what my passion is, to give all the energy to the kids. And my goal is
That's
to
wonderful.
push me to that outlet with the kids all the time. So I commend you because these kids, if us as an adult don't take to the street, they're lost to go to commit suicide. And I literally had kids come into my home, you know, thank you, you know, Miss Green, for being there, that didn't want to go home because they was dealing with so much
Stuff.
that the parents didn't even have an idea, you know, what their child was dealing with. So when I hear these stories, my heart just so, you know, overwhelmed to.
And I'm sorry, there was a wonderful testimony about what she's done with her wonderful daughter and inviting all the kids to her home. So I'm sorry y'all weren't here to hear that. It was awesome. Thank you for doing that.
We got to both get in here in this screen.
Okay.
All right.
You've got a tough question?
Yes, well, not a question.
Oh.
We want to present you with one of our champion awards. We started this with people who have done outstanding things in the community at large in Baldwin County for mental health, period, whatever that is, right? So this says NAMI Baldwin County Champion, presented to Francis Holk Jones. Thank you for the Jennifer Claire Moore Foundation Peer Helper Program supporting the students and families of the Baldwin County school system, April 5th, 2022.
Oh, thank y'all so much. Oh, my gracious. Oh, thank you. Oh, that is so wonderful. Did y'all see? Isn't that awesome? Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Oh, goodness.
And we look forward to a working together between NAMI, Baldwin, and what we need to